But this is the traditional Sandown 2+4 meeting and the final motorsport meeting that we'll be covering on ABC Sport for the year. And of course the feature event is the final of the Swann series for 1980, and the clear leader in the series is New Zealander Graham Crosby. He's World Formula One champion and he has 58 points, a handy margin to Adelaide's Greg Pretty, and just behind him is Gary Coleman. Absent today is Steve Trinder, who you may remember crashed severely in last week's Adelaide round of the series, but we understand he'll be out of hospital by Christmas. Pretty, who also crashed there, is still a bit stiff, but ready for today's ride against Crosby, who took out the Adelaide round with ease. Well, Crosby's margin is a big one, but the interest will certainly be there, and he may need every point.
But the field now forming up for this final race over 20 laps, 62 kilometres of the third Swann International Series, won in the first year by Geoffrey Sale, whose bike really hasn't been going well and doing him justice this year. In the second year by South Australian Greg Pretty, and this year being led by Graham Crosby, who's just now down behind the field doing a U-turn, wheeling the bike back, which Dennis Neal has also done on 4. Michael Cole is doing on 8.
And Crosby going up and down the grid. Greg Hansford, has he got a problem?
No, I don't think so, John. He might have a sticky clutch or something, doesn't want to sit on the line for too long, but I don't think it's a big problem.
Crosby has been given that bike by Suzuki, and it's going back to New Zealand, literally to be put on display in the family lounge room. It's now his, and he's not ready for the start, as you can see.
Crosby indicating something to Greg Pretty sitting beside him. They're getting ready and they're racing.
Coleman, but it's Wayne Gardner who blasts to the lead. Gardner leading, then Coleman. Coleman into the lead. And Geoffrey Sale, look at him on 10. Gardner though, and Crosby third, now picking up second. Sale back to third, but it's Wayne Gardner, the 20-year-old Wollongong rider. You can see there Trevor Flood on 5, Dennis Neal on 4, Pretty on 64. Sale,
safely through, but it's Wayne Gardner in the lead, Crosby in second, and Dennis Neal coming up in the third position. So the 4 strokes lead this race with the 750cc 2 strokes.
A disappointing start from Pretty and Aldana on the 750 Yamaha Grand Prix bikes, but a good one as you see Bolden there last past Dennis Neal. A great start by Neal and by Gardner. What a rocket this young boy is on number 6. Bolden there, then Michael Cole on 8. Graham Muir, Gary Coleman, Trevor Flood, but just headed by Geoffrey Sale. Rob Phillips there on 32, and Gardner. Boy, that bike is so inferior in frame and power to the bike it's leading at the moment. But the rider doing a great job on the Malloy prepared Honda Superbike number 6.
Crosby takes a look behind him now, going after the leader in second position and closing down the straight. Right up on him, but Crosby keen not to extend himself too much in the opening laps because he knows that his tyres can go up over 15 laps. And for that reason, he'll hang back just a little bit. That's behind him, Dennis Neal. Over Ron Haslam coming up into 4th position behind Dennis Neal. Mike Cole behind him again. No, it's not. Ron Bolden.
Neal way off line there and really got boxed in, so does a wheelie to compensate. Gary Coleman gets through too. Graham Muir lurking behind him on 96. There's Coleman. Coleman dropped it on Friday on Haslam's oil, and the bike he reckons looks about the tattiest of the meeting. But the Newcastle 27-year-old rider doing a great job, and look at Gardner still trying to keep Crosby in sight, an impossible task.
Crosby so smooth on that big Suzuki Formula One 1000, and Gardner so desperate and so talented behind him in second position, doing a wonderful job.
Curious prayer from the motorcyclist came from Wayne Gardner this morning, and it was for rain, because he loves the rain and he's so good in it. But dry track, And at the end of Goodyear, it's Graham Muir down on 96, the Jeff Taylor-owned motorcycle that Muir said yesterday, I mightn't start the bike, and if I do any damage to it, there's another bike there too, a Honda 1100. He said, if I do any damage to it, I'll be paying for it. A rider receiving attention.
Those hay bales being brought up to give, and it's Muir who's receiving attention. It looks like his legs.
But Crosby from Gardner in first and second place. The style of two great talents, one with quite a lot of overseas experience behind him now, a solid year this year, and going back next year as a Suzuki Works rider as they pared their team back, but they stuck with Crosby because he can ride these bikes and he can ride the 500cc Grand Prix bikes well too. Though not probably quite as brilliant on those as he is on this, and the wheelie, he tucks it down, but in behind him a number of riders lurking quite close actually to Graham Crosby, but the one we haven't seen, Greg Pretty on 64.
And the accident at Goodyear Corner giving the field a chance to bunch up there, so now Ron Bolden in third position, moving right up on the back of Gardner and goes through down the straight with Gary Coleman in fourth position right behind. So Gardner now slips back to third position, and Ron Bolden, riding brilliantly after a season when his style certainly has been off, is right up with them there now.
And then follows Haslam, Dennis Neal and Greg Pretty. Greg Pretty is picking up placings. Behind him, next bike is Pretty, way back there, just coming through Repco Corner. Two behind Haslam.
Rocket Ron Haslam, apparently or allegedly contracted for $400,000 by Honda in the UK to ride against Graham Crosby in Formula One racing next year. So Haslam keen not to put a bike down the road today and hurt himself with that sort of money resting on next year's season, as now Coleman goes through into third position, passing Gardner, who's put up a brilliant effort in the opening laps, but it's unrealistic to expect that standard frame to stay with sophisticated Grand Prix and Formula One machines.
And the question could be raised as to whether Coleman didn't overtake him there under a yellow flag. Because once you're in sight of the yellow, you must not change or improve your position. Gardner anyway lying fourth on the road, followed by Haslam. That's the race leader, Crosby.
Coleman with a real reason to want to ride well today. He's lying third in the series on 40 points, only 2 points behind Greg Pretty. So by being up there with Pretty, and there is Pretty, quite some substantial way back, the length of pit straight at least back behind Coleman. Coleman can take second place in the series, which would be a wonderful result for this Newcastle rider. Pretty probably still sore after last weekend's prang. There we are. The lead of the race has now been taken by Ron Bolden at the top of the hill. So Graham Crosby dropping back to second position, and Ron Bolden riding, I would suggest, the race of his life, if not the race of this season at this stage. Greg Hansford, why the return to form for this man, do you think?
Good answer. Question John is definitely the best that he's ridden in the whole of this one series so far.
Had a good dice this morning with young Victorian Graham Geddes. Got a brilliant start in the 500 race. Led it for a number of laps, but then Geddes hauled him in after a deficit of about 3 odd seconds, and finally finished quite a few seconds in front of him. But here is a determined Bolden. We know it's a talented boy, but he's got a lot of business interests, and he's even admitted privately that he frankly doesn't want to hurt himself with all his other interests. The 21-year-old being very well set, keeping close company there with Gary Coleman, the man he shared a production 650 Yamaha with in the Castrol 6R, and who he'll be teaming with next year. Coleman, he hopes, on the 750, Bolden on the 500 Yamaha.
Word comes through that it started to drizzle out there on the track. Not enough to be seen by our cameras as yet, but it is starting to rain, and that could well change the complexion of this race as Crosby takes the lead. Bolden in second, Coleman in third, in close company as they go down through the Essens.
Well, they're all on slicks, and Bolden showed this morning that when it started to rain during the 500 race, he didn't like it at all. He was braking very early for Repco Corner.
The accident now cleared, so the track is wide open again, and they can go through the S's at top speed. Graham Crosby does.
Beautiful, sweeping, flowing style. Graham Crosby, Bolden, Coleman, Gardner in behind him. Down the straight at some 280 kilometres an hour. Gardner now being caught by Ron Haslam, as you can see, slipping down under brakes on the inside of him. Coleman there fighting with his teammate and great friend.
Haslam couldn't do it. Haslam's still back behind Gardner. Gardner takes a look over his shoulder to see what's going on. There's Haslam, Rocket Ron, 24 years of age, Great Britain, Formula 1 champion, 1979. Had it taken from him this year by Graham Crosby. They are not the best of friends.
But won the English Formula 3 title this year, which is for race frames with 250cc race engines. Look at the bike kick up and get airborne over that bump on the back straight. As Haslam, following the other three in front, flies down into the S's. Haslam more so than any of the others. Doesn't mind his bike sliding around. Greg Hansford, you must have seen a lot of the very dramatic style of Ron Haslam in England.
Yes, well, a bit different than what you'll see here. He goes much faster on the circuits in England, and very, very hard for anybody to catch him over there.
Haslam, in fact, spent 2 days this week at Calder Raceway preparing the suspension of his motorcycle. It was too harsh at the front, too soft at the back. He's changed it around, and now he reckons he's got the formula right for racing in Australia, because our tracks here, he says, are far bumpier than they are in Europe. And as such, he's been all at sea in the last 3 weekends. He says now he's got the formula right. He's dying to come back next year to show us just what Ron Haslam can do. Greg, is his comment valid? Are our tracks bumpier?
Yes, John, especially this one. I'd say this would have to be the worst track we've got here as far as the bumps go. You'll just watch these bikes going up the back straight there now. The suspension, you can't see, we're not close enough, but the suspension is working to the fullest of its ability there.
As you come up into the braking area there, in fact, the back wheels normally leave the ground. You've got most of your bias on the front wheels.
Right, yeah.
Just how does it unsettle you with the back wheel off the ground?
It doesn't at all, because there you're travelling in a straight line. So if you're in the middle of a corner, you'd have to go a lot slower than you normally would.
Haslam now in pursuit of Coleman. Crosby in the lead on bike C, the big Suzuki.
That close shot of Coleman down through the S's, we can see the back wheel just stepping out in the direction. Perhaps, Greg Hansford, you might talk us about Sandown Park Circuit at speed on a race bike.
Okay, well, on Crosby's bike there now, he'd probably be doing somewhere around 150 miles an hour. And for the corner at the end of the main straight, he'll be going back to second gear there. Accelerating probably flat out there at the moment, and he might just get change into third gear. And now back 2 gears into first gear.
For the Victorian, as Gardner there on 6 puts on a bit of dramatics. Then Greg Hansford up the back straight, and then that fearsome rush off the top.
Right, well, he'd be in 5th gear there now. The big 4-strokes have only got 5. Probably back 2 gears into 3rd gear. Fairly fast left-hand corner there, and then you've got to flick straight back into the right-hander. 1st or 2nd gear here, depends on the traffic or whatever. I'd say 2nd gear there at the moment, he's out in front. 3rd gear, probably into 4th gear here, 120-something miles an hour.
What about the throttle through that area?
Flat out, because it's not a very sharp corner there. Back in the 3rd gear under the bridge, flat out coming back there.
And how much does the bike slide around, particularly down off the top of the Rothmans Rise?
They do get out of line a little bit, but you're not enough to probably see it on the television camera.
Bolden back into line again, into the lead, but Crosby then takes it back. Bolden did lead him on the straight. Crosby grabbed it back in less than 2 seconds, covering the first 4 riders.
Haslam tries for an inside run and gets it on Coleman as they come up into Holden corner. So Ron Haslam moves up into 3rd position with Gary Coleman relegated to 4th. And now Haslam in pursuit of Ron Bolden, who probably doesn't know he's there at this stage. Bolden tries for the lead and gets it from Crosby. Crosby now falls into the slipstream. This is the sort of racing that the Swann Series has been all about this year. Crosby goes for the brakes. And does it.
Doesn't use too much of them, Greg Hansford, over the top there.
No, the big 4-stroke engine does a lot of its own braking there, and the bike that Ronnie Bolden's on has no engine braking at all. It's just a 4-cylinder 2-stroke engine, and it's far much different from the bike Crosby's on.
Haslam now opening a lead on Coleman, so he was being held up by Coleman, and he's now coming onto the dice that's for the lead. And of course, these 2 riders, Crosby and Bolden, are holding each other up, and Haslam has a free track in front of him as again the slipstreaming brilliance of that Yamaha overtakes the Suzuki down the main straight. 6 speed gears compared to 5 for the Suzuki, and Haslam now moves on to arch rival Graham Crosby's tail. Bolden in the lead, up into Holden corner. Crosby with Haslam right there. Greg Hansford, who is the better of these two riders?
Well, I think Graham would be the more versatile rider. He can go anywhere in any circuit and do very well, whereas Ron has to have everything perfectly right to be able to do what Graham does everywhere.
They're on the 11th lap now, a race that's been reduced from 20 to 15 laps. So 4 and a bit laps to go, about 4.5, with Bolden leading Crosby. Yamaha in front of Suzuki at this stage. Honda in third and Yamaha fourth. The sweeping form of Ron Bolden, who really came to general public notice with an incredible dice over 20 laps at Mount Panorama in 1979 Easter, where Crosby, he and John Woodley featured in an incredible race where each of those three led the race on some occasion. The lead swapped some 60 times and was swapping sometimes 4 times a lap. Crosby at that stage was on a 750 Kawasaki, Bolden on the 750 Yamaha, and in third place John Woodley was on a 500 Suzuki. It was brilliant racing as we looked then at Coleman.
And right behind Coleman is Dave Aldana coming up through the field. So now Aldana, the American, joins the dice. And he's up there with Wayne Gardner behind him on bike 6. But there's Dave Aldana. He started the race of the series on the Kawasaki, gave it away after 2 laps because it was not well enough prepared. And we get the news that Aldana has been lapped. How about that? As we come back to the leaders, bike 59, Ron Bolden in the lead. Crosby behind him, right behind him. Haslam, Rocket Rock.
Making a lot of ground on the leading pair. And pulling away, as you can see, quite substantially from 4th place to Coleman on 52. Under the Dunlop Bridge now for the 12th time. 3 laps to go. Bolden, Crosby, Haslam.
1 minute 10.2 seconds that lap. That's 1 second off the lap record established last year by Greg Pretty in the final round of the Swann Insurance Series here at Sandown. And the reason that they're probably that 1 second back is because they're dicing so furiously that Ron Bolden in the lead is working hard to hold out Crosby as Bolden pulls a wheelie in first gear out of Holden corner. Up in the third cog as they go through the sweeper and up the back straight. 290 kilometres an hour at the top of the chute. Back through the gears to third cog as they go down through Rothman's Rise. Ron Bolden riding brilliantly in this race meeting. Certainly he screwed everything up to get himself there.
There's quite a return to form from Bolden from that brilliant race at Bathurst, and he's graduated through 350cc Yamahas, been running this 750 for a couple of years, got also a 500 Yamaha, and hopeful at some stage of going Europe as Crosby goes back into the lead with just 2 laps to go. Crosby determined to finish the series with a victory in this triple points round. 30 points for first place. A great shot there of Graham Crosby on the big 1000cc Suzuki.
So competitive is this Swann Insurance Series that by my calculations, Ron Bolden has become the 9th person to lead a race in the 4-round Swann Insurance Series in the last 4 weekends, and he goes back into the lead again at the top of the straight, and Crosby right on his tail this time now in 2nd position.
Long way back to Coleman in 4th place. Gardner still holding 5th. Behind him, Greg Pretty in 6th on 64. Greg Hansford, this is the sort of performance I think you've expected from the Grand Prix bikes at some of the previous rounds, where you feel that the 4-stroke Formula 1 bike of Graham Crosby shouldn't be fast enough and good enough through the corners to stay with them.
Yes, well, I think Graham Crosby might be in a bit of trouble. He might have missed a gear there and a big puff of blue smoke come out of his engine, so if you see him slow down, I think they'll know why.
He has done.
Yes, on every circuit we've been to, the 750 Yamahas should be able to beat these big 4-strokes, but unfortunately we haven't got the good 750 Yamahas in Australia.
There goes Haslam into 2nd position. Crosby has over-revved that motorcycle down the chute. Now a puff of smoke from Haslam's bike. he goes out in pursuit of Ron Bolden. Ron Haslam would love to win this race because he believes that he has not been seen in his best form in Australia. He would love to prove himself to the Australian fans. Back through the field, that's Jim Budd with Mick Hume right behind him. There's the leader, Ron Bolden. Now with Haslam chasing. Crosby in third position behind. Less than half a lap remaining. Haslam cranking it wide open there. Bolden, perhaps a 1.5 second advantage as he comes across the causeway under the Dunlop Bridge. Onto the main straight for the last time. He can't be stopped now. And with the checkered flag coming up, Ron Bolden wins the fourth and final grand final of the Swann Insurance Series for 1980 from Rocket Ron Haslam, the former world champion, and the current world Formula One champion, Graham Crosby, there on Bike C in third position. And Crosby takes the series. And the final points in the Swann Insurance Series, Graham Crosby on 88 points from Greg Pretty, 69, and Gary Coleman, 61. There's the winner of the race, if not the series, Ron Bolden, who actually comes up into fourth position because of that, I think, on 58 points.
Bolden had had some ordinary performances through the series. 9th place in the first leg at Oran Park, 8th in the next, 4th and 5th in the 2 legs at Surfers, 4th and 8th at Adelaide, and a brilliant run back there, and congratulations from Haslam to win the final round. Just the 1 leg at Sandown. Now here's Drew Morford.
Well, Graham, it's another laurel to you, the Swann Series, and one that you obviously treasure very dearly.
Yeah, it's one that's just sort of just topped off the whole season for us. Everything throughout the whole season has been absolutely brilliant. It's been really good. And this has just sort of put the icing on the cake, so to say. It's been good.
What happened to the bike just in the last lap or two?
Well, Ronnie's bike, I think, had a little bit of mid-range horsepower up the back straight there, and I could pick him up under brakes a little bit. And I was sort of planning a last lap sort of attack, just sort of biding me time, and I come onto the back straight. I think it was on the last lap. The second to last lap, sorry. And the blue flag was going to come out, and I come on, I give it a bit too much and missed a gear. And from then on, it went on to 3 cylinders. I was just hoping that the head of the valve wouldn't break off and then sort of get mangled up with pistons and all that, and then I'd fail to score, and that was the thing I was really worried about that last lap.
It's been fairly expensive. What, 3 bikes you've come off less than showroom condition?
Oh no, it's only the 1 bike we've had, but they've been pulled apart about 15 times so far this series. All the nuts and bolts are getting worn off and rounded off and everything. It's really good to see that. It's good fun.
It's been great competition, as was mentioned in the commentary. I think at various stages we had 9 different leaders over the 4 rounds in the Swann Series.
Yeah, that's true. It's been, I would imagine, it's something of a long-term plan of attack when you start these series. You don't have to win every one, but you have to finish every one. You have to be high up every time, and it's been really, really good.
How do you go on that big bike compared to the others? You're really working hard?
No, it's actually a dream to ride. It's suspension-wise, it allows the rider to sort of relax and sort of get into a nice smoother type of motion than the other types where they don't handle so much. It makes a bit hard work for the riders.
Well, that's it for the year here. What's your plan early next year?
That's it for here. I've got to continue on. I'm going to do a race in New Zealand at Wanganui around the houses, and I'm going to take the bike across there next week. So you might stop, but I've still got work to do.
And what's your plan for next year overseas?
Well, I'm going to contest 2 championships, the 500 World Championship, along with Greg Hansford, so we'll be battling it out together, as well as the Formula One World Championship. That's basically on the same lines as what it was run this year.
Well, we hope to see you back again next year in the Swann Series.
Yeah, you will.
And still hopefully as a reigning world champion.
Great, thanks very much.
Thank you very much, Graham.